My Lords, it's an honour and a privilege to follow the maiden speech of the noble Baroness Lady Smith of Clanfass, who I will call my noble friend, because constructive cooperative politics has to be a way forward in this changing, challenging world. I'm delighted to congratulate the noble lady on a spectacular maiden speech. The voice of Wales has very definitely been heard, as it so often has been heard from the noble Lord Wigley. And the arrival of Doc Martens has been duly noted. I would believe, my Lords, that we need to hear many more younger voices in your Lordship's House, and I hope that the noble lady will not be the youngest member for too long. The noble lady and her peers are the experts of the experience of being in the world today, the experience of being a young person in a world today. And it is crucially important, and I have no doubt at all that the noble lady will be bringing so much of that voice to us. Now, as we've just heard, and as the noble lady told the Times, she plans to stand up for the people of Wales, and of course as the former Chief of Staff for Plaid Cymru in the Senate and also working in the European Parliament, the noble lady brings great experience and knowledge from that. We're also talking, of course, about the balance of representation. Gender. We are still a very, very long way from the 50-50 Parliament that an excellent campaign group is calling for, but also in terms of age. But we need these experiences. We desperately need these experiences. Now, the newspapers have also got very excited about the noble lady's desire, which I share, to replace your lordships with an elected body. She, with greater cause than I, has great reason to ensure that she does not have a life sentence in your Lordship's House. Now, I wish to thank the noble Viscount Chandos for giving us the opportunity to debate this absolutely crucial issue, and particularly, as the noble Lord Whitty commented, on the way the debate is titled in talking about genuinely affordable housing. And that qualifier is needed because, of course, we have now, in terms of housing, something of a word soup of terms relating to the kind of housing tenure. The government's term, affordable rent, and there's also the related intermediate rent. This was introduced, affordable rent, in 2021, set at 80% of market rate, inclusive of charges. Intermediate rent is also available but at levels about 20% lower than the market rate, primarily to lower income households in London and the South East. We've got the London living rent, introduced to help middle income earners save for a deposit to purchase a house. We've got shared ownership, a form of tenure that all too often we're increasingly hearing is not so much a step up onto the housing ladder, but a great weight acting around the neck of people who are unable to escape from service charges, from unaffordable mortgages. We have the First Home Scheme, a kind of discounted market house, sale house, offered at a minimum reduction of 30% against the market value. We have to hope that there are not too many people in the age of the current level of mortgage rates who find that also a great burden. And I think we have to look at this in the context of how genuinely affordable housing, what has been termed a genuine living rent, can be calculated. The general rule is that households should not have to spend more than 30% of their monthly income on rent. That's in a broader frame of what's known as the 50-30-20 rule. Households should be able to spend 50% of their income on their needs, 30% on their wants, and have 20% available for paying off of debt or saving. My Lords, there are very few households in the UK today who are in that situation, the situation that we should actually be aiming for. And if we look at some figures from the National Housing Association, Housing Federation, they estimate that by the end of the next Parliament, 1 in 5 households, more than 4.8 million households, will be forced to spend more than 30% of their income on rent. That's an increase on 30% on the figures now. And of course, the other end of this rather disastrous housing pipeline is rough sleeping. We all see this every day. We see this on the streets around your Lordship's house. There's been a 20% increase in rough sleeping in the last year and 280,000 households in temporary accommodation. So I've done the depressing stuff. I want to focus on the positive, just a hint of what's possible. And for this, I'm going to Lewis District Council, and I'm going to Fort Road in Lewis. In 2020, the council took a disused council office building there and replaced it with an award-winning block of 13 council-owned apartments, which provide safe, spacious, bright apartments with a very high level of building performance and a renewable energy strategy. Designed using Fabric First principles, they have a large solar photovoltaic array with 13 individual domestic batteries. That means that the electricity costs are estimated to be 60% below the normal. The house also, importantly, has fire safety features, which are currently not required but are anticipated for the future. Fireproof materials and cutting-edge suppression systems. These are not only affordable homes and quality homes, but very safe to live in, something we need to think more about. Now, I point to this because it's not just simply a one-off. I go to announcements made by the Green leader of Lewis District Council, Councillor Zoe Nicholson, who in March pointed out how the council has purchased brownfield land around the Peacehaven Golf Club and is hoping to also develop council-owned brownfield site in Ringmere. 24 homes on the Peacehaven site, more homes on these other sites. They're also looking at old garage sites, 11 locations that could see 45 new homes. And I focus on that, my lords, because both the Noble Lord Best and the Noble Lord Whitty focused on a centralised national approach to solving our housing crisis. Well, my lords, there's no doubt that resources and changing regulations and rules need to come from the centre, but my argument would be that we need to resource local authorities, local communities, to provide the housing they need in their local community according to their local desires, rather than something centrally enforced from the centre. But the need for change in the centre comes to one particular issue that I want to focus on in this speech, which is right to buy, which has been one of the enormous privatisations continued over decades under governments of different hues that has done great damage to our national social structure, our communities, and continues to do so, because I spoke about the exciting things happening in Lewis. Well, similar things happened a few years ago in Norwich, in Goldsmith Street, where ultra-low energy passive house homes just outside the city centre were built in 2019 and won the Reba Sterling Prize for Architecture. But after 3 years, the tenants have the right to buy, and it now looks like that Norwich is going to lose a number of those homes, those brilliant social homes, to the private sector. And this, of course, is something that's happened to 2 million homes since 1980. Norwich has more than 4,000 people on the waiting list, and yet there and all around the country we are still losing more social homes than we are managed to build. So I've got a question to the Minister. What is the current rate of loss of social homes to right to buy? And I have a question that perhaps the Labor front bench might like to address. Why do they not plan to abandon this disastrous policy of privatisation? And I come now to some of the other costs of all of this. And I should perhaps declare my position as a Vice President of the Local Government Association at this point. Councils are spending $1.74 billion a year on temporary accommodation. This situation is a large part of the driver that is sending councils bankrupt. On LGA figures, 10,896 homes were sold in the last financial year under right to buy. Only 3,447 were replaced, a net loss of more than 7,000 homes. Since this scheme began, £7.5 billion has been handed out in discounts through Right to Buy. The kind of desperation this has left councils with, and I'm not sure many people know about this, but I think it's really worth highlighting. In desperation, Wandsworth Council in southwest London is offering £120,000 help to tenants to buy a house anywhere in the UK or anywhere in the world, provided it is not a council property. The council is so desperate to try to save its homes, it's offering people this very large sum of money. And I have to note that 4 in 10 of the homes sold off under Right to Buy are now owned by private landlords. I talked about the cost of temporary accommodation, but of course we also have the massive cost of now commercial level rents on what were council homes on which the state is having to put housing benefit. This, my lords, is just a clearly disastrous policy. And of course we knew that from the start, because the noble Lord Heseltine, back in the origins of this policy, said, and I quote, "No single piece of legislation has enabled the transfer of so much capital wealth from the state." This is, under that ideology, a description of we're reducing the size of the state. But of course what we are actually doing is making all of our communities and our societies much poorer. What we should be doing is moving towards a housing policy that treats homes as comfortable, affordable, secure places to live, not primarily as financial assets. So my final question to the noble Minister is community land trust, cooperative housing, other alternative tenure models. I want to champion absolutely council housing, but there are other models that can protect from government policy of Right to Buy. What's the government doing to encourage those?
Yeah.